one of the missions we were given was to go talk to a homeless person and to like buy them something that they needed.
Yeah.
It happened to be, we offered, hey, we have $10. We can buy you whatever you'd like for $10. She wanted French fries and a 7-Up from a pizza place. And that's all she wanted. She was really happy about that. And then we just sat there and like asked her questions about her life, and she talked. And I remember like seeing like, kind of her, I don't know, her whole demeanor just kind of got lighter after we just spent like 20 minutes talking to her about her life. She was telling us about her daughter, telling us about how she'd become homeless, telling us about the hard times she had in her life. And I don't know, like I could sense in the moment that was really good for her to be able to tell her story.
Right.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Journey Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Abigail.
I'm Dylan.
And I'm Tyler, and today we're talking about the power of a conversation.
Your life, your journey starts now.
One of the things that we like to say here that comes from Jeff actually is you can change the world one conversation at a time. And in light of just how crazy the world seems to be recently, everything that's been taking place, it seems like there's so much that we could list, from shootings to the big tech fallout breakdown thing that's taking place. It'd be really easy for us all to kind of slip into despair in a time like this. And so we just want to talk about kind of why conversation and relationship is so important and why it's a big part of what we do here.
I think the key of the one conversation at a time is, for me, the idea that we can't do this alone. And in order to not do it alone, we have to have conversations with people.
Right.
And
you don't have to be so overwhelmed by all of the... listen, there's really not much that I can do about an assassination attempt on a president, or about all the tech things going on, or just about, all of the famines or human trafficking. I can do things to contribute to those solutions. I can't do everything on my own. None of us can. But what we can do is affect change in the circle of influence that we've been placed in. And so I might not ever get the opportunity to go to another country and to, try and tackle some big crime ring or something. Mm-hmm. But I might be able to find the person in the cafeteria that's sitting by themselves or that's bullied and befriend them even when no one else will. And you really can not only change life for that one particular individual by being their friend and just starting with one conversation at a time, but also impact maybe generations, maybe other people too, if you didn't stop to have that conversation with somebody. There's a story that I'm reminded of, and I don't know who the writer is. It just says anonymous, and I read it in school. I feel like you said, Dylan, maybe you read it in school.
I've heard it before. Yeah.
But just this guy's telling a story about how he was walking home from school one day, and he saw this kid that he had never really seen before, kind of carrying a big stack of textbooks, and a group of guys runs by after school. They're like, I think younger, high school, maybe like freshmen in high school or something, and these people run by and knock the books out of his hand and like trip him and push him on the ground, and his glasses fall off. And he goes over, and the kid is like kind of crying, but he stops and he helps him like pick his books up, and the kid just has this big grateful smile and says thank you. Mm-hmm. And so they're walking home, and he's helping this kid carry his books, and they're kind of getting to know each other. And he finds out that this guy's name is Kyle, and he invites Kyle to come hang out with him and his friends that weekend. And so he does, and spends time with them that weekend playing football and hanging out, and Kyle just kind of becomes part of their friend group. And as they went throughout high school, Kyle was really smart. He became like a really popular guy because he grew into one of those people who like looks really good in glasses and was just really smart and actually pretty athletic. And so they get to graduation, and because Kyle's the valedictorian, he has to give the speech at graduation. And he starts off the speech and he says something like, this is the time when you're supposed to thank the people who helped you get through the tough times. And he proceeds to talk about how the reason he was carrying such a big stack of books home that day is because it was a Friday, and he had cleaned out his locker because he intended to go home and take his own life that weekend, and he didn't want his mom to have to go back to the school and clean out his locker. And so he was taking all of his books home. And yet that one act of this guy who tells the story of stopping to help Kyle pick up his books and just befriending him and getting to know him like that. From that one conversation, he changed not only the trajectory of Kyle's life, but of Kyle's entire family's life, of any, maybe a wife and children someday. Like all of that was changed because
just by one conversation.
exactly
Yeah.
this one
So
person was
powerful.
willing to stop and have a conversation. I mean, saved somebody's life and he didn't even know it.
I think we forget like how much just like the little things can really help change people. Because there's obviously so many problems in this world, and we're also so connected with it. I mean, you can go on your phone and you can look at every single problem there is out there, and you get so overwhelmed and you think, what's going to stop this? Like, how am I going to, figure this out?
Yeah.
And what it really comes down to is like, you only should focus on the things that you're in control of, which is how you're acting around other people. Like you have a huge influence about the people like around you. And so even I've been so much like very focused on building a community in like the church and in other places where I'm literally just having conversations with people. I mean, it was funny, my friend, I was going through my calendar and she was looking at my phone and she was like, why do you have so many like names on your calendar? And I'm like, those are people that I'm meeting. And she's like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, just to have a conversation, just to talk, because it like there's so much beauty and so much importance in just sitting down and having a conversation with someone, which is also something that you can be helped with. If you don't know where to go, you can come to the Journey Coaching website, and we have our booklets, and there's 7 sessions, and you can go grab a cup of coffee with a friend and just talk about life and all the different things.
Yeah. It's a really helpful resource to just get conversation going, help get to know each other, help get to kind of see, like recognizing each other, who God, made you to be. And whether you believe in God or not, there's still something to be gained from the book. And I just think, even if we look at Jesus specifically and his model of how he raised up his disciples, which is just the people who followed him, right? A disciple's like a learner, a student, kind of a follower.
Lifelong student, right?
Yeah, right. And so what did he do? Like, essentially they followed him around and he taught them things like as they did day-to-day life. Now day-to-day life with Jesus was a little different because it was 2,000 years ago, and because he was able to do miracles and heal people and stuff. But a lot of it was they followed him around in day-to-day life, and then he just taught them things as they went. And I think about,
And they asked questions.
right, and it's
Yeah.
like those conversations shaped them into what would become, now the
Yeah,
the
and I
biggest
mean, they
faith.
radically changed the world.
Right.
Just by really conversations.
Right. And so it's, I think it can be overwhelming, to your point, Abigail, because we can see all of the mess that is the world just, with the device in our pockets, to just kind of be able to remove yourself from that and go, okay, what can I do today? What is one thing that I can do today? I mean, we're not even talking about like, toppling. We're not talking about like toppling a mountain right now. We're talking about what is the first step I can take to being positive change, right? To being, the one who helps pull somebody out of that rut, or the one who helps influence somebody to go in a direction that is not only beneficial for them, but for the society around them. Instead of, you never know if that person that you see that maybe you find difficult to talk to and no one likes them and they're picked on, and it's easy. The easy thing to do is just be another person who passes them by. And you can, you make excuses for yourself like, well, I wasn't the bully. I just, I don't bully them, so I'm fine. But it's like, yeah, but you walked past while they were being bullied, or you saw that they were alone and you chose not to do anything. Like, if more people were willing to just be the brave one to say, man, I can't like fix all of this person's life problems, and no one's asking you to, but I can sit next to them. I can have a conversation with them. I could make sure that they never have to eat lunch by themselves again. Like, just imagine what kind of an impact could happen if people in every, not just in school, but in every, facet of life around the world, there were people that were willing to say, I'm just going to take that one step to have a conversation with somebody who looks like they need it.
I'm reminded of the starfish and metaphor.
I don't
Do you know
know
the
it.
little,
No, you
the
got
little
it.
kid who saves the starfish? Do you know this one?
No, I have
Oh,
no
this-
idea what
Is
this
this
is.
a counselor thing?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
I don't know where I heard it, but I've heard it numerous times. But so this little kid, he goes on the beach and he sees all these starfish, like hundreds of starfish. The whole beach is just covered, and he starts to throw all the starfish back in the water to try to save them, right? And some person comes up to him and he's like, kid, you're never going to be able to save all these starfish. There's no way you can do this.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I can't save all of them, but I can save some of them.
Yep.
And that, to your point, Tyler, you're not meant to have to do the best for every single person and save every single person from their danger, or what am I trying to say? You don't have to help every single person. You're not meant to, but you can help the people that are in your circle.
Yeah, the people that you interact with, on any given day, and people at school, at your work, in your friend groups, even like in your church, if you go to church, or just people that you interact with. Even if you interact with them only semi-regularly, you could consider them in your circle of influence.
I'm also reminded of there's an interview when the Columbine shooting happened. People were interviewed, and one of the people that was interviewed was Marilyn Manson. And Marilyn Manson, he's like a metal singer. He's kind of a rough and tough guy. Right. And somehow he got interviewed for this, and he was asked, what would you say to the shooters that shot up the school? And he said, I wouldn't say anything. I would listen to them because I assume that nobody ever did that for them. How powerful is it for somebody to listen to us?
Right.
It's even, as you said, it's not about like somebody trying to come in and like tell you how to live your life. It's like, no, sometimes we just need people to simply hear us out, listen to us. I remember I went on a mission trip in Chicago, 2014, and we one of our missions that we were kind of given like a fight club mission to go out and do something. And one of the missions we were given was to go talk to a homeless person and to like buy them something that they needed.
Yeah.
It happened to be, we offered, hey, we have $10. We can buy you whatever you'd like for $10. She wanted French fries and a 7-Up from a pizza place. And that's all she wanted. She was really happy about that. And then we just sat there and like asked her questions about her life, and she talked. And I remember like seeing kind of her whole demeanor just kind of got lighter after we just spent like 20 minutes talking to her about her life. She was telling us about her daughter, telling us about how she'd become homeless, telling us about the hard times she had in her life. And I don't know, like I could sense in the moment that was really good for her to be able to tell her story.
Right.
To even if it was strangers that left and never saw her again. And then of course we prayed for her, but like that meant so much.
Right.
And I could tell that it meant so much.
Right. Yeah, and I think all of us know that whether your situation is that one or you're just a person, you're like, maybe I don't even have anything that catastrophic going on in my life right now. I don't have any big major problems necessarily. But all of us have days where we just think, man, it'd be really nice to vent, or it'd be really nice to just feel heard or feel like someone cares about me. It's a nice feeling to know that people care about you. And so recognizing that, I think it then becomes the responsibility for the rest of us to say, I want to be that person for as many people as I can. And if you are a believer, if you're a Christian, someone who follows Jesus, our motivation for that is we're supposed to be like Jesus was for other people. And I just think of all the different times Jesus regularly, even if you know nothing about the Bible, you can understand or relate to the fact that the kind of people that Jesus hung out with were not the popular kids. And they weren't the rich ones. They weren't the ones that had it all together. Like, he ate with people that the rest of society hated. And then they would regularly come to him and say, why do you eat with such terrible people? Like, why do you eat with people that everybody else in society outcasts or bullies or just considers unworthy of their time? And he says, it's not healthy people who need a doctor, it's the sick. And of course we know that Jesus is the ultimate answer to these things, but even for those of us who are just trying to look like him, it's like, I love my friends. I want to talk to my friends because they need people to hear them too. But some of my friends have a lot of people in their life that can hear them out. And so as easy as it would be for me to just kind of stay inside my comfortable little bubble, I'm sure I could be happy doing that for forever, but I wouldn't really be making much of a difference. And so what about the people who don't have any friends? What about the people who, from a social standpoint, are sick, or, people who need somebody to just listen or be their friend?
So this was like during COVID, right when COVID happened, I was also homeschooled, and my house was destroyed because there was a big storm. So we had to move 30 minutes outside of like where we had lived. And so I actually I was in middle school, and there was a point in my life where, because I was homeschooled and also because of COVID, and then also moving like 30 minutes outside of the city I was living in, I was not around my friends. So I didn't keep in touch with them, even though I had a phone, for like so many different reasons. I actually remember I was in like literal isolation, like as like being, I think I was like 13 or 14. And that really hurt me, and it shaped me. Like, I view like the world differently now, because there were days where I would just stay in bed all day. And like I remember there was a moment where I told my dad, and I was like, he had asked me like, Abigail, like, how are you doing? And I'm like, I remember I told him or he asked me this question. He was like, or he told me, he was like, you need people. And I said, no, I don't. Like, I don't need anyone. And it's like on the inside I was like screaming like I do need people, but it was easier to just shove that down, because like I felt like I lacked an opportunity to go like see people and be connected to people. And so it was easier just to say, oh, I don't need people. And I remember my best friend, she it was so funny, because this is like kind of where we like got close, because she would always like spam me. Like, she would text me and she would, Abigail, let's hang out. Like, and I was like, no, like, I don't want to, I'm really tired. I was always saying no, and she would literally spam me. And like, I'm looking back now, like, what a blessing it was to just have someone repeatedly say like, let's go do this, let's go hang out. And even there was so many times, like 90% of the time we didn't, because I said no, because I was so tired, I wanted to be alone. And I was very, very lonely. But it was such a blessing to just have someone like be right next to me, even just to text me like something little like that I really appreciated that.
Yeah, right. And I think honestly, as human beings, just I think one of the things that we have, for some reason, developed an even greater ability for as humanity has advanced technologically, is we can look at other people as not actually people. Mm-hmm. We kind of forget that we're all on the same team here, that we're all human beings. And so I don't think it's a stretch to say, like, we have a responsibility to our fellow human being to not allow people to be isolated. Not in the sense that we're forcing somebody, maybe you're naturally introverted and that's fine, but I do feel a sense of responsibility when I see somebody who's lonely. Like, I do feel like I would be doing not do anything is actually to do a negative thing. You know what I mean? It's like
the sin of omission.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's like if I'm to just look at a situation that I know I could help. Not that I'm the answer, but like Dylan said, maybe I don't need to say anything. Maybe I just need to listen, and to not do anything, I think, is part of the reason why we see a lot of the problems that we see today, because there aren't enough people that are willing to step up and say, I don't care if it makes me look bad. I don't care if it takes a little time out of my schedule. I don't care if it's an inconvenience to me because, this person, it makes me feel a little awkward. I'm just going to go out of my way to make sure that they're okay, or to listen well, or to, be a shoulder to cry on if that's what they need. And I think if we had more of that, I'm not saying it would fix everything, but I am saying that we might see less of the things that constantly fill our news feeds right now.
Yeah. I totally agree. What I have found in my counseling office is people who isolate themselves when they are depressed or feeling anxious, it just makes those problems worse. Avoidance of people, avoidance of hard conversations doesn't make the feelings that we have any better.
Yep.
It actually elongates them, and until we're able to actually process and work through stuff and have people help us carry the weight of our problem. Not that they have to take all of it, but they at least help us. It's essentially, I have this image in my head of you're walking down this really hard path, and the person that comes alongside you to help you is not trying to push you or pull you on the path, but they simply walk alongside you, next to you on the path, they allow you to put your shoulder or their
Right.
arm on your shoulder and
Help you carry some of the weight.
Exactly. And there's a psychologist, Brene Brown, who kind of paints like the picture of sympathy versus empathy. Sympathy is you're walking down a path and there's a pit on the side of the road, and you look into that pit and somebody's down there and they're stuck and they can't get out and they're hurting because they're falling into this pit. Sympathy is like looking into the pit and saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry that happened," and then you keep walking.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas empathy is the same thing. You go to this pit, you see somebody in it. Instead of walking past, you actually climb into the pit with them, and you just sit there. You don't
Right.
try to pull them out of the pit. You just sit there in the middle of the pit and be present while they're feeling their feelings
Right.
and doing their thing and processing what they need to process.
Right.
But it's so much easier to sit in a pit with our despair when somebody else is with us.
Yeah.
And if we're isolated, it just makes it way harder to process what we need to process.
You might eventually be able to help them out of the pit, but at least initially, they just need someone to be with them.
Right.
Like any difficult circumstance is going to be at least somewhat easier if you don't have to do it alone.
Which speaks to the power of just one conversation with somebody can save somebody's life,
Yeah.
like that story
Right.
of Kyle.
Absolutely, or save the lives of other people. If we're going back to the Marilyn Manson quote, you know, I've been to the Columbine Memorial in Colorado, and it's kind of down in this little valley area. It's very interesting because we're there, and there's like at the school there's a baseball tournament going on, so it's loud over there. And then you just walk down into this little valley where the memorial is, and because of the hills around you, they're probably only a couple hundred yards away, but as soon as you get down in the valley, it's just silent. Like all of the noise goes away, and you're just walking around. You're looking at pictures and you're reading quotes from family members about people who lost their lives that day, and you think, man, how many people were impacted, like just one day,
Right.
that maybe could have been different if just one person would have had that conversation. And, you know, unfortunately, there's a plethora of other examples, not even just, you know, in the violence realm, but other examples, too, of people who have just had these terrible things happen, things that affect people for generations of, you know, whether that's, generational abuse or poverty or whatever it might be. Like, you could be the one who helps change not just the life of that person, but the generations that follow them, if you'd be willing to have that one conversation and see where that goes. So we've talked about it only takes one conversation to change the world, and we would encourage you, whether it's for yourself, you're the one who's needing someone to talk to, or you know someone in your life or your circle of influence that needs that conversation, grab a journey book, or even just don't grab a journey book, but be the one who's brave enough to step out and say, even if it's going to make me look silly, even if it's going to require me to kind of go outside of my comfort zone, be the one who's willing to have that one conversation that might just change somebody's life.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next time and make sure you like and subscribe. Visit us at journeycoaching.org and check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Start your own journey at journeycoaching.org.
Your life, your journey starts now.